Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, family. My name is Kemba Byam, and I'm a training and development consultant with the Confronting Anti-Black Racism. Thank you for joining us here as we bring in Emancipation Month, Emancipation Day. I want to start by honoring the lands that we are on. We acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And of course, if we were together in community today, we would be pouring libation to honor our ancestors. And I want to share with you how we do our African ancestral acknowledgement with the City of Toronto. The City of Toronto acknowledges that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past. And those of us especially who came here involuntarily, particularly those who were brought here to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to our ancestors of African origin and descent. And I'd like to invite His Worship, Mayor Tory, to share his remarks.
Kemba, thank you, and good day to everyone. And this Emancipation Day ceremony, as small as it may be because of the COVID restrictions, is very meaningful and very important. It's become even more and more important as time has gone on in the City of Toronto. And I'm honored to be here with Elder Margaret Nelson and with Rosemary Sadler to raise the Black Liberation flag at Toronto City Hall for another year in recognition of Emancipation Month. 2 years ago, I issued the first proclamation, Emancipation Month proclamation in Toronto, to acknowledge the legacy and the history of slavery in Canada, and celebrating at the same time the rich contributions that people of African descent have made to our city and to our country. And you know, when you hear me say the words slavery in Canada, it's the case that a lot of people think, who may have studied history as I did, other people who have come here from other lands, that we didn't have slavery in Canada. But in fact, we did. And while it was abolished here a bit earlier, nonetheless, we had it. And I think it is very important for us all to understand those portions of our history that may have been overlooked over time as people studied history and as we discussed the early days of this city and of this country with each other. You know, it's evident from the events that we bore witness to in the news media, on social media, right here in our own backyard last year, that we need to continue to acknowledge and to recognize and to correct the injustices that Torontonians of African descent have faced historically, including the ever-present, and I say ever-present in the present, impact of systemic racism. It's here in present-day Toronto, and we must be mindful not only of its presence and acknowledge it so that that equips us then better to address it and to fight it, but we've also got to address the intergenerational impacts of things like slavery as far back as it goes. Those things do have intergenerational impacts that live with people who live with us right here in the City of Toronto today. It affects not just sometimes how they feel about themselves, but it does affect, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, how sometimes people feel and look towards them. And if we're going to move to being the most inclusive city in the world, we already are the most diverse city in the world, then we have to understand what it's going to take to provide that extra little bit of recognition, that extra bit of support, that extra bit of acknowledgement that is going to help people to feel totally included and totally welcome and totally a part of this great city in which we live. So recognizing Emancipation Month is not only about celebrating the arrival of Black people to our communities, but rather commemorating the journey that those very same people were on towards equality and justice then and now, because that is a journey that continues, very much continues to this day. It's far from its destination point. It's important for us as a city to do what we can to help eliminate anti-Black racism and to put programs and services in place to support Black communities and ensure that respect and opportunity are available to everyone without exception. I'm proud that we're pushing forward on very important initiatives under the leadership of our Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit. It was the first of its kind in North America when it was introduced at my instigation a few years ago. Oftentimes, people may not be aware of the work that we're doing, and that doesn't mean it's not work that's worthwhile, because a lot of the things go on. For example, you may not know that we're in the process of giving anti-black racism training to every single person who works in the City Hall, and it takes a long time, and it's not something that's going to come to your attention if you don't work here, but it's important work. And I hope that at some point in time we'll be able to extend that very same kind of education and information to every single person who lives in the City of Toronto, not just people who work here. We want people to be at the table with us. So throughout the month, the City and the CABR, the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit, will be offering opportunities for Torontonians, for residents of the City, to get engaged. Tomorrow, for example, the City's Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit will host its first virtual town hall from 11 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. And during this session, participants will be entertained with live performances. They'll receive updates on the work that our unit is doing and future plans as well, based on our action plan that the City Council itself approved and is very much wanting to stick to. And part of the role that Elder Margaret and others play is to be part of an accountability table that holds us to account for what we're doing relative to what we said that we would do. Registration for this virtual event is required, and you can find it on the City's website at www.toronto.ca/ABR. I encourage people to join and learn more about the great people and work that are behind the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit. I want to share some of the other things that are happening during the month. Just this morning, as an example, I unveiled a new bronze sculpture as a memorial to abolitionist figure Joshua Glover. It's located in the park also named after Joshua Glover in Etobicoke, just down the road from Montgomery's Inn, where Glover was employed for many years. And he was employed there only after he escaped slavery in the United States and used the Underground Railroad to get here to Toronto, where he could pursue a new and a different life. Today, Toronto History Museums launched Ancestral Uprising, an augmented reality art installation by one of the world's leading Afrofuturists, the same person that did the sculpture in Etobicoke, Quentin Burchetti, the same artist behind the sculpture and somebody who's an up-and-coming star in our artistic community. On August the 9th, Toronto Museums will launch new content for the Awakenings program in time for Emancipation Month, and that includes an augmented reality art installation, a reimagined contemporary portrait of Mary Ann Shadd, the first black woman in North America to publish a newspaper, and a film that centers on emancipation in present-day Toronto as an act of remembrance, protest, and resiliency. You can find information about these installations at www.toronto.ca/museums. There are a few other events, including one with a different book list on August 1st, an online and on-site exhibit with the TTC and Toronto Archives, all of which can be found online at the Toronto Archives Twitter account. In addition to participating in these events or others that may be taking place throughout Toronto, I encourage residents to learn on their own. There's such a rich variety of information available on the internet now, and it allows you to learn, all of us, to learn more about emancipation and the importance of Emancipation Month. I want to just conclude by saying a word of thanks to the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit for the work that they are doing with the support of the CABR Partnership Accountability Circle and the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee. It's the push from these groups, the initiative, the time they take, that helps, and the support that comes from residents and from council and from the administration at the city, our great city staff, that help move us towards becoming a city where everyone is truly free, everyone is emancipated from some of the events that have confronted us in the past and from some of the systemic racism and other kinds of discrimination and stigmatization and stereotyping that continue to exist today. We want people to be free from that and to feel they live in a city that is truly itself free and embracing and accepting and welcoming of everybody, no matter what their background is. So I thank you very much again for the contributions everybody has made to making sure that we could be here today, and it is now my great pleasure and my privilege to introduce Elder Margaret Nelson, who will say a few words about the importance of this flag raising and this month and the event that we're commemorating today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. My name and members of the City Council that are here. My name is Margaret Nelson, an elder. I'm here as a representative. I'm here as a representative of Partnership and Accountability Circle, PAC, which is a part of the working body of the Countering Anti-Black Racism here in Toronto. So I am here as an elder in this circle. I've lived in Toronto for 49 years. I've seen many changes, gone through many trials, and have been in many protests with the likes of Dudley Laws and Charles Roche and the Jamaica Canadian Association working on changes we wanted in the city. Today, to stand here addressing this gathering for me is profound. I've said all this just so that you're aware of my dedication to this city and is willing to work for the change we'd love to see for the people of color and the indigenous population in this country. The International Decade of People of African Descent was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 and will run until 2024. Emancipation Month, and whereas, is responsible to this proclamation. August has been declared as Emancipation Month across Canada, the Caribbean, and the UK. August is the month that the British Abolition Act was first introduced as well as implemented. This act was first signed on August 28, 1833, and enforced on August 1st, 1884. This is a monumental moment for people of African descent in this fair city of ours. To see the raising of the UNIA flag here at City Hall. The first UNIA flag was raised here in 2016, August 28, for that reason, to commemorate the signing of emancipation 5 years ago. I was not able to attend at that time, but my speech was read by Mr. DeWitt Lee. Mr. DeWitt Lee has worked tirelessly to ensure the flag was raised here in August as Emancipation Month. Today, July 30th, 2021, on the eve of August the 1st, 2021, a year in which, for the first time, Emancipation Day has been acknowledged across Canada. This flag is being raised to celebrate August the 1st, 1884. Many here today may not understand the significance of this flag, its history, or what it means to persons in the diaspora from the Caribbean, the UK, and Canada, and every colony where the people of Africa was enslaved, and the true meaning of Emancipation Day. I know some here who work in City Hall and are aware of the renaming of Dundas Street and the reasons, as this portion of history was new. Henry Dundas, who kept his slave for 15 more years before he emancipated them. Just a small bit of history. The black, gold, and green flag was unveiled to the world by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and the members of the United Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. The African Communities League of the Home and Abroad needed their own flag, as other flags around the world could not represent the collective of African people. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me here, and I appreciate being a part of the pact and a part of this looking at ways we can improve and the understanding the history. And like the mayor said, there's a lot of things going on within the city, and we just have to pass the information around so that people become aware of the events that are taking place and how they can participate. Thank you very much. And I would be passing over to Ms. Rosemary Sadler.
One of the joys of coming after two amazing speakers is that all of the good points have already been said. But hopefully I've got a few left to make during my brief time with you today. I also want to thank Mayor Tory so very much, and the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit for inviting me to be part of this event today. It's very important to me. I'm going to read a quote by Kofi Annan, who was the former Secretary General of the United Nations. He said, "We all know what the problems are, and we all know what we have promised to achieve. What is needed now is not more declarations or promises, but action to fulfill the promises already made." How should I respond to injustice? How can we heal after human rights have been denied? How does the past affect my present? As you've already heard, this is part of the UN International Decade for People of African Descent. So the timing of this now national commemoration of August 1st as Emancipation Day is highly significant. You should also know that Toronto was the first municipality, just the first, the first place anywhere in Canada, to officially proclaim August 1st as Emancipation Day in late 1995, 1996. However, at the time, my outreach to the city about a flag raising, a raising of the Pan-African flag, was denied. At the time, only the flags of nations could be raised, and the opportunity to do this 20 years ago or more was lost. But things have changed. More engagement, more recognition have taken place as we respond to injustice and those missing voices. The transatlantic slave trade was an injustice. It harmed people at the time, and the harms continue through to today. So we're here now asking some very basic questions. How do we find home? How do we find family? How do we find belonging in society? There is an invisible thread that connects us to the natural world, to the continent of Africa, and to a sense of community. Even my kente cloth has threads, there you go, has threads that hint to my connection to Africa. A flag is a symbol of the peace and unity of the people inside its vicinity. And by raising this flag in a few moments, we will affirm our presence. We will affirm the meaning and history and ownership of our diverse identities. The Pan-African flag was adopted almost 101 years ago to this date on August 13th, 1920, at a UNIA meeting headed by Marcus Garvey. And he did so. He created this flag. This flag exists now because it was a challenge, because every race had a flag but us. It symbolizes the unity of people of African origin, tied by those invisible threads, the African diaspora. Red is for the blood that unites all people of African ancestry. Black for the Black people, whose existence as a nation, though not a nation state, is affirmed by the flag. And green for the abundant and natural wealth of Africa. I am proud to have seen to the official commemoration of August 1st as Emancipation Day that I proposed, then worked to achieve since 1995. I'm very happy to be here today to celebrate that with you as part of Emancipation Month. I want to thank all those who supported these efforts by attending educational events I organized at City Hall through to Fort York National Historic Site, who signed parliamentary petitions, including the Royal Commonwealth Society National Branch, national level, who joined the reactivation in Windsor, where I was keynote speaker with the U.S. Consul General John Ney in 2008, Nyahuma Obika of Trinidad and Tobago, who shared this idea with me, and to DeWitt Lee for his efforts. But mostly to the ancestors for the legacy of resistance and resilience that we're experiencing right now. Let us be that symbol and facilitation of freedom for our future generations. And hopefully, you'll be able to join some of the other celebrations, including Free Up Emancipation Day at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on CBC GEM, or Emancipation Day Celebration of Freedom, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on YouTube Live. Thank you all very much. And now, back to Kemba.
Thank you. I'm going to invite His Worship Mayor John Tory to present the proclamation to Elder Margaret.
Elder Margaret, we're proud in the City of Toronto as a council to proclaim each year Emancipation Month in the City of Toronto, and this year is no exception, notwithstanding that we're not able to have gatherings that are as large as we might in some other years, and we hope to be able to do that again next year and have many more people here on the podium at City Hall. But the proclamation comes with no less sincerity and no less meaning and no less importance. And I am pleased to give you, I won't read the entire proclamation, but I can tell you that this represents the official proclamation of August 2021 as Emancipation Month in the City of Toronto, and I'll give you this, which can hopefully find a special place that is meaningful to you and to members of the communities that this day and this month are so important to. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will boldly hang it in my house and I'll share it.
Sorry, we can do it. We're okay for a moment. We just stand like this. There we go.
It will be displayed proudly. Thank you. Thanks to the mayor and the city.
Are we now going to raise the flag?
We are now.
All right.
Place this back here.